Heather for recording for us. So yes, this is an on-demand webinar too. So those of you that are here live, if you are uncomfortable with your face being recorded, it is okay to turn your camera off. If you'd like to stay on and see my lovely face and show your lovely face, it's good to see friends. So I'm all about that. And because we're a smaller group, feel free to unmute when we have a couple things around engagement, but also, as always, use the chat. And if you are on the go and you can't do either of those things, that's completely fine too. But I would love to start by just, as I'm kind of getting us situated and getting you logged into the resources, if you'll share in the chat, what is something that you read this summer that you enjoyed, that brought you some joy, that you would recommend to others. It can be a you read. It doesn't have to be a kid-friendly read. It doesn't have to be a professional read. It can just be something that kind of got you a little bit of a disconnect from the world. And while you're doing that, you'll see if you type in the short link, which I'll put right here, you're actually going to come to this little Google document instead of the slides. But the slides are easily accessed for you right here, where it says Canvas slides. Like I promised, these are for you to make a template and teach with on your own. So you'll come to this Google document, and then you have a whole list of things that we're going to talk about. I personally like having everything in one spot instead of having to click through the slides to find the thing that person's presenting on. So everything is here for you. But like I said, you still have all of the slides should you want them. I love that Heidi said she's telling bedtime stories with ChatGPT and making our cartoon to match. That is so you, Heidi. That doesn't surprise me. And Eddie Winston is looking for love. That is not one that I have on my list yet. So thank you, Pam, for a new recommendation. Our team shared the, actually what's funny, they're like right here in front of me. I didn't do this on purpose, I promise. But our team shared what our summer reads were, what our goals were to read this summer. And I have two of the three. So I read Remarkable Bright Creatures. Finally, it was so good. I loved it. And then I also read When You Find a Hope, which is kind of blurry, but there you go. Really, really sweet story. So if you like the book that's like when you find an idea and when you find a hope and that kind of thing, it's in that vein. It's a really cute story. Lila read Mercy Watson, which is fantastic. It's such a good one. All right. Well, thank you all for kind of sharing in here, getting us started with what it is that you were reading. It's fun, as librarians. I know that's what we do. Ooh, I haven't read The Lost Library by Rebecca Stead. I'll have to check that out too. So thank you for all these good ideas. And I'm starting with this because if you have to hop off early, you'll see at the very top the feedback form is right underneath this first prompt, because it'd be really helpful if you do have to leave early just to still give us a little feedback on if this met your expectations and what you might need to know more about this topic. So put that on the top there for you. And without a whole lot further ado, how about we jump in and get started? I want to start by mentioning that this is a new series. So all of the library webinars will be consistently every first and third Thursdays. So you'll look for that logo. It's going to be on our social media. It's on their Eventbrite. So these things will be posted. As of right now, you can sign up for the next one, which is going to be on September 18th. That's going to be looking at this same thing, at our Connected to Research resources, and looking at the North Carolina specific topics. I'm really excited about Alyssa and the ideas that she has, that she's bringing to this. I'll talk a little bit more about it later in this webinar, but that's one to kind of mark if these are tools that you've overlooked in the last couple of years, or you've used it and you haven't used it in a while. This will be fun for you. So, and then in October, we have two more scheduled as well. One celebrating the North Carolina Children Book Awards for the next coming up year. We have the Lisa, who is the co-committee chair for that program. She's going to come talk about it. And then on October 16th, we'll talk about go-getters and grant writers. So mark your calendars for those. But for this webinar, we're going to talk about that newly designed NC Ed Cloud, what we're calling Connected to Research. Catered just for you, for librarians, because you're the ones who do a lot of the professional development and a lot of teaching with these tools. So wanted this to cater to you and your needs. I want you to bring your library lens when we look at things like information literacy, when we're thinking about UDL and accessibility, because again, our role is to work with every learner in the school system or in our school community. So it's important that we keep those things in mind. And I have some kind of helpful hacks that I've learned that I wanted to share. And then lastly, I hope you'll click. I hope you click on with me, and I hope that you will connect some dots and maybe connect with each other, and then leave with some teaching ideas, whether that means teaching students, teaching other librarians, or teaching your fellow teachers about these different resources. Sound good? And again, if you have questions, please put them in the chat. I'm kind of watching that as we go too. So I got to give some credit here to some awesome Chapel Hill librarians who made this graphic, and they were teaching about this like the week after the big podcast episode. And so I love that the new news is what was grabbing people's attention. But this is new. And a lot of people just logged into their NCED cloud over the summer or in the back to school time and notice these new icons. And so kind of exciting to see these new icons show up. But what do they mean, right? As librarians, we're pretty familiar with them, but you might be wondering, why is there still a Britannica one? Why is there still an EBSCO one? We didn't want the new news to throw people off and take away those Britannica and EBSCO icons that they are used to. So for right now, those are still there. But if you haven't clicked yet into these different resources, now's the time, because it's a good time to kind of get acquainted with them. So the good thing is, even though it does feel like new news, it's not like all new, something new to learn. It's still secure access through NCED Cloud. Okay, so we moved away from NC Wise Owl, and this is always my reminder that if you have NC Wise Owl listed anywhere in any of your resources, delete it, because it doesn't we don't use it anymore. It exists, but it doesn't exist like it used to. Now we still have that access through NCED Cloud. However, it's less clicks. Okay, so you open one icon and all these great EBSCO things are in one place and easy to navigate, and so many more that used to be buried under the topics educator resources and student resources. They are still the same trusted digital resources that are for every North Carolina learner. And I think that's really important because we have kids that move around the state, right? And this is the one set of like familiar resources that they will still have access to. So the other positive about that is this is all familiar. There's nothing they have to relearn. It's still Britannica, right? It's more of a glow up than it is something that's officially new, if that makes sense. All right, so in the chat, if you will, this is meant to be fun, just kind of get you thinking. Just share one safe for school keyword that your students might search in a data search box. So if they're in a database, what would they type in? What would they be looking for? I threw some ideas out there, but Erica, axolotl is like a hot topic still. It's so cute. They love them. Oh, Colleen, I love you for being you. Narwhals, totally. The psychology of serial killers. Yep, there's definitely the kids who are going and looking for the true crime stuff. Yep, that's why we have a range, right? You never know, the axolotl kid might also be looking up the psychology of serial killers. So, but the point being that this is where typically they would do these things in something like Google, right? Or now in a Gen AI tool. But kind of directing them into these different things, they can search for these things, right? In any of these resources. So yes, we talk about EBSCO and Britannica a lot, but don't shy away on some of these other resources and seeing what things are actually in there. So if you are not familiar with this lovely little resource, it is here listed. I'm going to scroll down a little bit, but in your Google Doc, if that's where you're following along, you'll see this Google link right here for the EBSCO Britannica resources. That's the same thing I'm looking at here. So if you're curious about all of the things that we have access to and what age groups can see them, that's where you'll be looking in this chart, okay? And we were very, very, very careful / meticulous about when students are logged in and they are looking in their link. I'm going to jump around. I'm sorry. Hang on. Maybe I'm not. When they are looking at their little purple dot, let me go back. I'll show you. When they are looking at these dots here, they are only seeing theirs. If I'm a second grader and I log into NCED Cloud, I'm only going to see the K-3 connected research resources, okay? If I am a teacher, though, or a librarian, I'm going to see all of them. And we did that on purpose because we knew it was really important for you as librarians to be able to teach along with the students, to see what they can see. But again, as I was saying, we were pretty meticulous about what they were seeing, not because of necessarily like, worry over that, but just what do they really need? It's more of a let's not overwhelm them, because I think sometimes that student resources page was very overwhelming because there was a lot of things to click on and no one really knew what they meant, or it wasn't for the age group that was opening it up. So we were pretty thoughtful about what was going on each of these pages. But I wanted to draw your attention down here because there's a lot of questions about what are all these things, right? And what do I use them for? And then the other cool thing that I didn't even know existed until I worked on this was that we actually have links here that will tell you a whole Google spreadsheet of what books there are. Okay, so if you are curious and want to know what books are available, or if you're looking for a specific topic, instead of going into the resource, you actually could just control find it right here in the long list. Now it's a big list. It's not really exciting to look at, right? That's why we would go to the actual resource. But I do get a lot of questions often about how do we know what books are there? Or I didn't even know we had something like this ebooks, which is Cricket Media, which is really good for some early literacy ebooks. So these are just some things that, again, thinking of you as librarians, this might help you feel a little bit more comfortable and confident talking about all of the different things that are in there. So I wanted to draw your attention to that. But then, kind of our favorite resources like Britannica and EBSCO Explora and NCpedia are all there and super easy to find, okay? So before I talk a little bit about UDL and accessibility, I'm going to pause. Do we have any thoughts or questions on this first part about just getting there, getting navigated? Okay, I know. Well, I've got a lot of smart people in here in the live session, so we can move on. But just wanted to pause, make sure. I mentioned this in the beginning, but I want to say it here too, that as librarians, if you haven't read closely your evaluation instrument, the words universal design for learning and accessible, access and accessibility are in there a lot. I think a lot of times people don't always know what that means or what that looks like, and they think, I wasn't trained on that. But we are. Oftentimes, this simply just means how do we provide equitable access to the resources? How do we help students with language barriers? Yay, Erica remembers some of this from NC Bold. I'm glad, because July, sometimes, you're there, you're present, but who knows how much sticks. So I'm glad some of it stuck with Erica. That's awesome. So, I think sometimes we think that there needs to be a specialist in charge of some of these things, but that's who we are. We're information specialists, and we provide access to that information for students, and we try to remove barriers, right? That's what a lot of UDL just means. It doesn't mean that you have to be a digital accessibility expert. It just means opening up your awareness to these things. So, for example, looking at things like Britannica and Explora and NCpedia, I know some of these things existed, right? That there are things like changing the reading levels or using text to speech so that students who may need that read aloud support will have access to it. There's translation that's built in. I'm going to show you some of these things. I simply asked ChatGPT, to be totally honest and transparent with you. I asked ChatGPT to give me 3 to 5 accessibility and UDL concepts around these 3 resources. And so that's how I was able to summarize it for you. Again, these are things I know because I've gone in and played with it, but these are really great reminders for those of us librarians who know that we do need to consider these things when it comes to helping provide access to them. So let me show you what some of them look like. How about that? So this one, kind of a did you know? Hopefully this is another one. I talked about it at NC Bold. And I know that my friend Audrey Long has talked about this for as long as she's been in charge of Britannica and EBSCO, but I will tell you I did not know about Britannica Escolar and Moderna until I worked on this project. I worked in a dual language immersion school, And I did not know that Britannica came in native written Spanish articles. I knew about Google Translate, and I knew that there was a way to provide Google Translate. I was not aware that there was this level of integration. So not only good for our students who speak Spanish as their first language, but also students who are learning Spanish have access to, it looks a little different, but you'll see that there are biographies and videos and articles, and they are 100% in Spanish. So let me show you. I typed in Hawaii. I'm watching the show Chief of War on Apple TV, so I might be a little Hawaii biased right now, but also I'm like super curious and learning about its history. So I was like, well, I wonder what I can find here. And it brought up several articles. And what I thought was really cool is it shows you right here, quick little article, but similar to what you see in the Britannica with English language, right? You're familiar with that idea of an article setting. But what I also like about it, why I wanted to show you, is it has the read aloud option in Spanish. Oops, I jumped a little far, sorry. Hopefully it will catch the audio here in a second. Hang on.
Cráter de la ladera oriental del Mauna Loa, en el Parque Nacional Hawaii Volcanoes, Estados Unidos. Es el cráter volcánico activo más.
Really helpful scaffold, again, not only for the student who might know Spanish but needs it read aloud to them, but also for those Spanish learners. You know, I wish I would have had something like this to teach me a language. Another good thing, you know, in terms of language, when we're talking about accessibility, again, sorry if this is a repeat for those of you that heard it at NC Bold, but I think it's important, again, as librarians, when we're thinking about our access. So language was a barrier. In my school, I didn't know that I had access to these kinds of quick translation tools right here in Britannica. So it has all of these different languages, right? I picked something like French because that's easy for me to personally know and to translate. But I want to show you what's really neat about it is that it has so many different languages. Last year, I had a librarian reach out to me, and she said, I have a student who just moved here from a community that they only speak Pashto. How do I get books in Pashto? I was like, good luck. There's not very many books that are published in that language. We looked at things like UNESCO and we found some things that she could use, but this I thought was really important because this, again, is a tool that every student in North Carolina has access to. So if she could teach this student that you have the same thing on your screen as your neighbor, right? Now we're looking at that sense of belonging, right? That like empowerment. But also if that student were to relocate again, they know how to access this, right? That new library might not have a couple Pashto books like this library was able to obtain, but they can get into Britannica and have this access. So I think it's just important to kind of shed a light on the different reasons why we might use this. Again, language learners on the other side too. If you have students who are excited about learning foreign language, this would be a really cool thing for them to be able to go back and forth on. And here's one last one in terms of accessibility. If you're not aware that there's this open dyslexic option in Britannica, start talking about it, start using it, especially with your teachers who might be a little shy about using these tools when they're teaching. I think this is a really big game changer for them. All right, let me talk about a couple other favorites that I think, you know, those are like go-to ones when we're talking about research, but don't miss out on things like this points of view reference source. Really great in terms of, we think about debate a lot, but a lot of times we just need to show students in terms of media or news literacy, how do we approach a hard topic with different perspectives? This is the place to go. But I put a little caution sign there because I want to say, as of today, September 4th, we've had a couple issues with it being rerouted. Okay, so when you are logged in as a teacher, and if you click on this, we're having a little reroute problem. We know, and we're working on it, and it will be fixed. So maybe if you're watching this later on, it's not happening. But I just wanted to point that out, that we're catching these kind of little bugs, and it's fine to email us and just let us know when the bugs show up, because then we know about them and we can try to fix them. So, but don't let that be the reason you shy away from it. There's so many other good ones though. National Park Service, I'm going to have you play with in a few minutes. That's a really great resource, as well as the North Carolina Museum of Art has so many teaching resources for so many different subject areas. So if you have a art teacher who is anxious to collaborate and bring in social studies, for example, because I hear a lot, that's something that kind of gets pushed aside in like an elementary setting. That can be something that you could take in and do with the art teacher and bring some social studies, do a little cross collaboration. PBS Learning Media is another really good one. And then I wanted to mention this one too, because I love what the North Carolina History Museum has. And I think it's another one of those big resources that we can think about in terms of instructional collaboration. However, the link just went away. The link didn't go away. When you click on it, it says classroom resources now under construction. So they, as of like 2 weeks ago, have taken down I know Heather's making a face. They took down their teaching resources to put back up better ones. So just know it's that one's a work in progress, but I don't want to change it or make it go away because when it's back up, it's going to be good stuff. It was good stuff before they took it down. All right, so let me be quiet for just a second. Anyone feel brave and want to unmute and share one of the resources that they love that's on the NCED Cloud? Or you can put it in the chat and I'll just read it out loud. Yay, Heather, will start.
I just have to share, y'all know that sometimes we just need, as school library media specialists, we just need a win with teachers just to get them like in our back pockets, right? And so Teach Britannica is that win. So if you have not checked out Teach Britannica, there's something about Teach Britannica that takes me back to Discovery Ed, Spotlight on Strategies, like that kind of instructional practices goodies. And Teach Britannica just does a good job, a great job of giving you instructional strategies, exit tickets, bell ringers. But I think the thing that I love most about it is that it's got some lesson plans in there that tie right back to Britannica School. And in those lesson plans, they include instant ways to collaborate. And I think for our media specialists to be able to like take those lesson plans and say, hey, look, this is a great way for us to collaborate. Let's do this lesson together. This is from Teach Britannica. And, you know, and then share the instructional strategies and things like that. I don't know, check out Teach Britannica if you haven't already. It's applicable to all content areas, all grade bands. So there's my little, spiel. Oh, and it's free. It's free. That's the other good part.
And again, I know some of you hung out with us in NC Bold and we talk about it a lot. It's because it's like the thing I wish I had when I started out in the library, but also just in the year since. Like I'm going to it pretty regularly and finding some things to use with. So it's not a Britannica only resource. So they're not paying us to talk about it. I'm just going to tell you, they're not paying us to talk about it. Colleen says she loves the virtual tours. So every single age group does have a link to the North Carolina Museum of Natural Science because their virtual tours are so much fun and so engaging. So thank you for pointing that one out, Colleen. And then Erica said sharing the Parks app with a teacher who loves to travel to them. I'm one of those people too. So it's really fun to be able to bring that back. And if I can't take the kids to the place with me, at least being able to bring the place to the kids is really cool. And Christy said the points of view. Yes, it is. I feel like it's one of those, like your social studies teachers probably know about it. Your English teachers might, but there's so much applicability to it. So, please feel free to send people that way. And yes, to Stacy saying they're aligned to literacy and highly effective strategies. I agree completely. So if you're not sure what we're talking about with the Teach Britannica, it is this little button right here. This is actually linked in your document, so it'll open up for you if you want to look into it a little bit more. But it's also, so it's on the teacher page. So if you go into the teacher resources, this is right up there at the top. And then I made a link here to the Teach Britannica webinars because you might want to learn a little bit more about it. That'd be a great, it's very self-explanatory. I don't think you have to watch a webinar to follow along, but it's helpful if you want to dig in a little bit deeper. All right, so let's move on. I want to get you clicking and connecting some dots on your own. And again, a little different because I know a lot of you I got to hang out with this summer at NC Bold, so I wanted to change it up. I think a lot when I think about like the digital detective kind of concept. Do you know who it makes me think of is Carmen Sandiego? Like I was the Carmen Sandiego kid, loved the game, loved the show, thought it was so cool that it came back for Netflix for the next generation. Yes. So please be a gumshoe for me. We're gonna do some lightning rounds because that was always my favorite part. I don't know why, like excitement of it all. So yeah, I did too, Erica. I like feel like I missed. So this is my opportunity to be as close as possible to being a part of the show. So if you will log in to your NCED cloud, if you can't, don't worry. The resources I'm gonna ask you to use, you don't have to be logged in for, but it's helpful. So if you want to open up another tab, get logged into NCED cloud. Your first lightning round, I'm gonna give you like 2 minutes, is I want you to look for a biography. There's more than the Britannica biographies, but if you would like to go there, that's totally welcome. And in those 2 minutes, I just want you to think of a person that would be of interest to your students. So it can be an athlete, it could be a pop culture person, it could be, somebody that you want to celebrate for Hispanic Heritage Month, like Frida. It's up to you. So pick something that you think your students would be interested in. Search for that person in some kind of biography source. So again, could be Britannica or EBSCO, but there's other things in there if you want to dig around. I will also recommend maybe NCpedia. They have a lot of North Carolina biographies that you won't find elsewhere. And I want you to not just look for that person, but in this little bit of time, see if you can think with that lens of accessibility, UDL, or translation. So once you find somebody, then put on your like new glasses and think about accessibility, UDL, or translation. And then once you've found it, tell us in the chat who'd you found and what resource you used and what feature made that biography accessible. So I'm going to be quiet and let you search for 2 minutes with calm music.
Molly, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So when I logged into my NCED cloud, and I clicked on the 6-8.
Yep.
And I went to biographies.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a box from Britannica School saying that I was not a subscriber to log in.
Let me recommend log out and log back in. I had a weird thing. This popped up to me today on EBSCO, and I just closed out the window and I logged back into NCED Cloud, and that reset me. Let me know if that works.
Alrighty. Nope.
All right, send me a screenshot of it to my email.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It did the same thing for me too.
Try the
I wonder if just regular Britannica will let you go in. It's got to be something with the rerouting.
try the teacher one.
So one of the things I am noticing though, hold on. So what I think it was, and I don't know why it's doing this, but when I first click on the ConnectED resources, it takes me to like the DPI canvas, and it doesn't automatically log you in.
Right. You have to go into your NCED cloud first.
No, I mean, I'm in NCED Cloud.
Okay. And when
And
you're in
then I click
Canvas,
on like the ConnectED resources, whichever one.
Mhm.
It routes me to the DPI Canvas site, to a page of those resources, but
Yep.
it doesn't log me into the DPI Canvas.
You shouldn't need to be. Once you're already authenticated through NCED Cloud, it typically just sends you right into anything that you've clicked on.
Okay. Yeah,
So-
because even if I've logged into that DPI Canvas, I'm still getting that same message I sent you.
Okay. Thank
I
you for
thought I
sending
solved
it. This is what I said earlier about bugs. We need to know
Yep.
about them so that we can fix them.
Yep.
Because I was in it today, actually. I was practicing this and making sure that the biography thing would come up. So who knows? Something's happened in the last like 3 hours. Anybody
Yes.
try anything other than Britannica that had any success? Wait time. Yay, Christy said, in the biographies icon, right, in Britannica, if you're spelling it incorrectly, yeah, it's kind of a bummer. I know that they are getting better about some of those keyword searches because I saw the same thing in Destiny, right? For the longest time, if a kid typed in something, then, and it was close, but it wasn't exact, you wouldn't get the whole title. And then they eventually figured out how to let kids, second graders type into a Destiny search box. So I'm seeing the same thing happen with Britannica. It's getting a little bit better, but thank you for mentioning that for that biographies box, I would send kids there if they're not sure who they're looking for. I would go to the biography icon in Britannica if students were looking for an inventor that was from a specific time frame or a specific part of the world, or if they're looking for female inventors for Women's History Month, like that would be a good, so it's a really helpful, like broad search thing. If you are looking for a specific person, I'd just go right to Britannica. And I know that we had that little barrier, so thank you for letting us know about it. Heidi, meanwhile, was successful in starting to translate a Mae Jemison article. I love that you went to space. That's perfect. I mentioned this earlier, but I'm a big fan of that NCpedia biographies. I was digging around in there recently and found in June, we did something around talking about biographies. And I learned that June is Women's Golf History Month. That's an obscure thing I would know. And I found out that there was a really kind of interesting female in there that was like, you can't find that in Britannica. But just know that we have biographies and good stuff that's buried even in like the NC Kids digital library, for example. There's tons of biographies in those platforms, as well as like PBS Learning. So don't hesitate to go check those things out. And speaking of PBS Learning, this is your second challenge. So kind of another quick one to get you clicking on some things differently. This one is based on your age group. Okay. So, one more thing. Pam said she went into teacher resources and found in middle grade to find information about Saint Oscar Romero. Super cool. Thank you for doing that and finding something and sharing it. Okay, for this lightning round, like I said, every age group has this North Carolina virtual tours. Okay. Sixth grade, you're actually going to need to click on the one through the sixth grade student resources, and it will bring you to the North Carolina Parks link. Or if you are more of a 9-12 library teacher, and again, I know some of you in here are district leads, so just pick one that is of interest to you. And I just want you to pick one here in our Google Doc. If it's easier for you instead to click directly on these links, you can do that. Take a couple minutes to just search this page based on the age group you choose. And then in the chat, tell us how might you use it with that age group? Or how might you collaborate with a subject area teacher on teaching with one of these resources? All right, so 2 minutes based on your age group. Have fun clicking and thinking. I'll play music this time. Apparently loud music, sorry. All right, about 10 more seconds. All right, so Erica has already come in with a good idea to use the Museum of Natural Science, that teachers can go in and do a virtual tour of the areas and create a scavenger hunt to find different things in those virtual spaces. I love that idea. That sounds very engaging and like a good way that you can personalize it, right? So give them a little bit of guidance, but also that balance of like free exploration, right? They get a chance to kind of go and explore and see things, but you're keeping them on track in a way. Anybody else? Perfect. Melissa used the Guilford Courthouse and said that 7th grade uses intro lit, and one theme is courage and perseverance. So teachers could use this to discuss the events around those ideas. I love that idea. Christy says in classes that require interviewing community members, there is a tutorial called How to Shoot an Interview on a Smartphone on PBS. Really love that idea. 6-8, Pam says Trail of Tears will tie in with the novel White Feather by Nancy McTosh Patford, who is a North Carolina author. That's awesome. Heather, do you have something? I saw you turn your camera on, so I'm just curious if you got something to add or if you're just joining us. I put you on the spot, sorry.
Sorry, no, I'm just joining back after a hold and dismissal, so we are good now.
Good, I'm glad that you're back. Thank you, Erica, for being here too. I know she said she has to leave early, but these are some fantastic ideas in just 2 minutes, right? Like 2 minutes of searching. And I hate to tell you, but part of why I made you do this was one, a little interactivity for yourself to explore these things. But this could be that bite-sized PD, right? Just giving your teachers one tool and 2 to 5 minutes to explore it and see how many different ideas you can come up with. So I think it's important for us. We need to be the ones that go in and click and find things. And I'll be honest, I've done that a lot since we started working on this project and thinking a lot about how I would use a lot of these resources myself. But I think that that's one of those things we think sometimes PD has to look like this, like a whole hour with a slide deck and presentations. But even if you can grab 2 minutes of a PLC, for example, or 2 minutes from the beginning of a staff meeting or whatever, it can look like this. It can be click on one of these icons that your students see, and let's do a quick little lightning round of how many ideas can we come up with for how we can teach with it. And as you did right here, you come up with a pretty good variety of things in just a few moments. So thank you for kind of playing along, but also thinking a little bit about how we could teach others to use them as well. How many of you use Novelist? Hopefully some of you. I agree, Lila, being able to zoom in. All right, so novelist is one of those things that I think also we know as librarians, but that a lot of our teachers probably do not. So this was another one of those ones that, as we discussed, we said we want to bring it up front and center. I did talk about this a little bit at NC Bold, so I'm not going to get too much into it, but I just, again, wanted to kind of put it in front of you as we're now back to school. You might be working on displays, you might be working on book lists, and you might have teachers who are coming to you and saying, man, I am tired of the same books that I use every time to teach fairy tales. What else do we got? You know, and it's like a good reminder. Maybe I got to go refresh that section. So Novelist is a resource that we have had access to. It was buried in that EBSCO button. So a lot of people weren't sure what it was or how to use it. But this is what it looks like. They also did a glow up this summer. And you'll see like the homepage has a search bar up on the top, but a little thing I wanted to point out is, do you see you have to toggle here how to use the natural language search? So they do have an AI built in to their searching capabilities, but you have to toggle it on. So if that's something that you're interested in exploring, just wanted to point that little bit out. This is not available for students. Okay, so this is only in the teacher resources button and not available for students, only because it might be a little confusing to them to do a search and come to the library and ask you for a book that you don't own. So we just try to prevent those kinds of questions from coming in. We have been asking since May for Novelist Plus. And we supposedly have access to it, but no link. So Heather has been emailing on the regular. So just, I know I said that in July, just want you to know the holdup is unfortunately not us, but we are continuing to work on it. And when it's there, it will be, you know, more for that teen and adult group. But I want to also say that if you do search for books in here, I did it recently, actually. I had somebody ask me for some books and I went into Novelist to do a little searching, and it gave me quite a few young adult books, enough for me to warn you, those of you that are in middle grade, please look at the audience. You know, make sure that when you get a result, even when it says Novelist K8, it will kick back more of that YA, you know, 16 plus recommended. So, you know, when it says K8, it typically does hit that age group, but occasionally it will recommend up. So just a little thing to kind of be aware of. Right now, if you're high school, I wouldn't shy away from using this. You're still going to get some good resources. And again, if you're not familiar with what it looks like, it has curated lists. You can search by a book, by a topic, by a series, by an author, but it also has really cool things like a story element or genres. But I'm showing you here, when you click on one, just anyone that comes up, it gives you that like little blurb, that description, and then immediately read alikes, which is one of, I think, the top reasons why we would use this. But it also gives you that opportunity to kind of search by different features and read alikes. I agree, Melissa. The curated list for fans of is brilliant, and it makes us feel like you know, we know so much, even though there's no way that we can read all of these books. But a lot of times our students get really excited about a specific author. Kwame Alexander is a great example of that. And they might say they really like his books, but can't articulate that they like novels in verse, right? But as soon as you work with them and show them these are the things we can search by, oh, novels in verse just means that it's like poetry or free verse, and I can just read a few at a time, and, you know, here we go. So that's kind of cool how it will let you either the curated list that way or work with your students on finding books by who they're enjoying reading or what they like reading about. This one, for example, is I picked kind of a curated list and started going, and then it caught my eye that one of the tags here said chupacabras. And I was like, yep, that would be something the kids would want to go down the rabbit hole of what other, like just like Axid holes, right? Like there'd be like chupacabras, give me all of them. So that's what this is. This is like all of the books that are curated around just having chupacabras in them. So it can be really fun to just kind of get in there and click and play a little bit. And I feel like, again, because this is a session for librarians, I wanted to recommend that. Heather's already talked about all this, so I'm not going to get into it again. She didn't know what I was working on. They do have a for fans of Bluey. They do. Lila is a good detective. That Gumshoe found the fans for Bluey list is really cute. So thank you for finding that one. Teach Britannica is, as Heather said, amazing in terms of the amount of resources for you. The two that I pointed out are similar to what Heather said, which is one, the mini lessons will help you or your teachers think about how do I teach with Britannica, right? If they are like, I need to get away from Google searching, I need to get away from the kind of, using the internet as my search guide or my research guide, and I want to help students, use this database, please show them mini lessons or sit with them and design a mini lesson with them. I think they're excellent. Heather mentioned that one, and then Stacy talked about the instructional alignment. These instructional strategies ones would be really helpful. Again, thinking about that frustration you can feel as a librarian that somebody is struggling to see your value as a collaborating force. This is where I would go. I would go and read through some of these instructional strategies as well, because there's really helpful things around collaboration in there. Would also pass this along to BTs. So a lot of you who work with, either if you're in a school or you're working with librarians, I would put this instructional strategies, really any 4 of them, but the instructional strategies one especially in your back pocket to get BTs in terms of, getting to work together, and kind of that would be my entry point to getting BTs to come work with me. Is there a way to search on Teach Britannica? That is a good question. So, it kind of depends on like where you are so there's not like a search bar up here at the top. There's all kinds of resources. I think it's because I've got a small screen. I'm going to go to mini lessons and see if I can show you. Yeah, I don't think I could search for like space. I think you just have to go through. Why isn't it bringing it up? Oh, because I'm not in my age group. Hang on. Yeah, I don't see in here that you can search for. I don't know that there's enough yet. That might be part of the problem, is like if you scroll, there's not, like, there is one about space, which would be helpful if I could just choose like science, for example. But right now I think it's just limited because there's a few per age group. So hopefully that helps. All right, so Teach Britannica, super easy, fun. I've passed along a little bit more learning for you in there. I share these at NC Bold, but one example is for like I'm calling them like app talks. I'm not sure that that's what's stuck in my brain. It's like an app talk. So these are little visuals that some folks made when we went to NC Bold throughout the summer, and they had some time to create or to explore and then create one of these kind of visual reflections. So the one for Teach Britannica, it kind of speaks for itself, right? Like this would be something that I could see a librarian hanging up in a high volume area, right? Like where are teachers maybe above the copy machine that's like, have you seen this icon? Do you know what it can do for you? Right? And just putting it somewhere where everybody could see it. You could even put it in your like email signature, right? And change them up after a couple weeks and put a, kind of app talk, another one, if you will. And then this other one here for NCpedia was made by Lindsay from Nash County. And she had fun exploring NCpedia. And then these are kind of her little takeaways of what she liked about it. So this could be something that if you do get a chance to do professional development, either with your librarians or with teachers, this could be kind of that last reflection piece, is asking them to create one of these little app talks and share what did they discover about that resource and why might people use them. And then think about what's the next step. Where do we share that so that people get a little bit of, reminders that they're out there. If you want to create one of these yourself, where it says ready to teach this, the visual recap right here will open up a template. So it will look just like this, and it already has all of the pictures of the icons as a second page. So you just have to like carry it up onto the main one. So those of you at NC Bold already saw it, but wanted to kind of, again, put it in front of you as a reminder that it can be a really good reflection piece as well as a promotion for these different resources. And a good reminder here to just kind of say, like, a lot of times teachers, right, are going to look like this when you're like, hey, let me tell you about these new resources, right? Let me give you a 1-hour overview of everything. It can feel very overwhelming. And oftentimes, I don't know about you, I was never given an hour PD. If I was able to give PD for my teachers in my school, it was optional and they might come after school. And an hour was going to be too long. So when you do get these opportunities to talk about it, yes, they might want an overview, but I think more often they want to know how and why they can be transformed into their curriculum, right? So these are some things that I shared. One, I shared the for teachers version at NC Bold. So those of you that didn't get to see it there, this is linked for you here. Okay. And then I made a student version by request. Somebody said, can you make it for students? I said, sure. So these are going to send them towards specific tools to learn about, right? And to use. But the most important part is getting those teachers to think, how might I actually use the North Carolina Zoo educator resources? Don't just tell me it exists and where to find it. Tell me why I should use it, right? Tell me how I can use it with the new science standards. Like that's the intricate level that they need. So these are there to help you kind of help make those connections. This is another great one in terms of how do we help our students think about using them and become more proficient users. This came out of Melissa, who is a librarian in Johnston County, sets up an artifact of the week. I learned about this last year and I've not stopped thinking about it since because I think it's so clever and creative. And she puts out what's basically like this little trivia over here and then puts out a book. You'll see that there's a picture printed here and the students just take this little slip and they go on Britannica or they go on EBSCO or they go to check out an ebook or maybe it's Encyclopedia, right? Whatever the resource is, they go and learn a little bit more about that topic. But the first thing they see is, for example, this picture, which is the artifact of the week. Then the couple questions are ones that they would go and find in these various places. So that'd be another way that you can kind of get students a little like on their own Carmen Sandiego Exploration Edition of the different resources. So have to plug AI. Stacy will be proud, I know. But don't shy away from it being your thought partner. Okay, so I asked it for what are some ways that. So I asked you earlier. Think about ways that sixth grade teacher or middle school teachers can use the National Park Service site and learn about North Carolina national parks. And it came up with these two quick ideas: how science and math teachers could teach with that website. And it takes 1 second really to type it or a couple seconds to type it in. And then, here you have a little, shelf talker almost for how to use one of these apps and resources. Same thing with Digital NC. I asked it for specifically 4th and 5th grade, how might they use the resources in Digital NC? And I got these results, which inspired these little infographics or what we are calling click paths. So in 4 clicks, I can get to Digital NC and into their audiovisual resources, right? And then remember ChatGPT gave me 4 ideas for how 4th and 5th graders might use this resource in their work at school, right? And very easy. Why would I could look at photos, I can search in newspapers, look in old yearbooks to learn about what school was like. And then my favorite one was primary sources. It is full of primary sources. I read the best quote this week that said, why do we need to teach with primary sources? One, because students need to have that historical exploration, but they also need to think about media literacy today, right? It connects to today's skills because it's teaching them about the importance of being media literate, which is primary sources, right? Excuse me. So I know I'm running out of time. Sorry to be talking fast. But I did make this into a template for you too. So you'll see the ClickPath template here. And, I think that, again, this could be something you print out and it goes at your circulation desk. Here's 4 steps to get into Digital NC, and here's 4 things you can do with it. It could be in your principal's newsletter, right? If it goes out once a month or once a week or whatever, this could be something you put in there. Or if you are having a staff meeting in the library, which happens all the time, right? I could see this being something you print and put on the tables, right? So it's just a reminder, a visual reminder with no time given to you for PD. You can still promote some of these things across your staff. So just a few recommendations. And then the last thing I wanted to point out here is that, again, those librarians in Chapel Hill that made the new news graphic, they shared their resources with you. So if you want to see how they presented to their staff about the updates, they were willing to share their entire slide deck so you could see that and be inspired by it, as well as Kay from Johnston County. She also presented a very good session this summer with a big overview, and it was a fantastic session. So I wanted to pass those two things along if you are thinking about how you'll teach with this. So, all right, so again, I asked earlier, but if you would give us a little feedback on how this webinar went, if we met the description as promised, and then if you have any further questions about it or things that you liked that you'd like to see again in the future, we are listening, we pay attention, and I always closely read. When we ask for feedback, I always closely read it. So that is my little pitch. And again, the link is at the very top of this document that you have and hopefully have open. And Heather has been very generous in terms of putting the new links. You are the first ones to know and have access to signing up for these next webinars. So again, if you'll join us on the 18th, that link is already in Eventbrite, but new news, you can now sign up for October webinars as well, thanks to Heather's work behind the scenes. So thank you for joining today. I hope that this was helpful, gets you thinking about how you will use it, how you'll teach your students to use it, and how you will transfer that to teachers as well. So thanks for joining. I will stop recording, or I think, Heather, you're recording. So will you maybe, there we go, I can do it. Cool. All right, so